The verdict was unanimous, guilty. Mark Bridger will now spend the rest of his natural life behind bars for the abduction and murder of the schoolgirl April Jones. The 5-year-old went missing in mid-Wales last October. Her body has never been found. Bridger stood impassively in the dock at Mould Crown Court as the judge described him as a paedophile and a pathological liar who had deliberately set out to find a young girl to abuse.
In a victim impact statement read out in court, April's mother, Coral, said, "I still cannot go into her bedroom to sort out her clothes because the pain of her not being there is indescribable." And she went on, "As April's mother, I will live with the guilt of letting her go out to play on the estate that night for the rest of my life. I will never see her smile again or hear her stomping around upstairs and onto the landing. We will never see her bring home her first boyfriend, and Paul will never walk her down the aisle. How will we ever get over it?"
A warning, there are some distressing details in this report by our Home Affairs correspondent, Andy Davies.
This is April Jones, in her white school polo shirt, fresh from a swim, her 16-year-old stepsister following closely behind. She heads down the corridor of her local leisure centre to find her mum. It's 5:30 on a Monday afternoon. Her sister playfully pushes her along on her way. Just over an hour and a half later, she would be abducted and never seen again. And this is the man who took her, killed her, and then hid her. Mark Bridger, 47 years old, father of 6, and tearful defendant, seen here shortly after his arrest. The erstwhile friend of April Jones's parents, who's repeatedly refused to tell the police where he disposed of the 5-year-old's body. Coral and Paul Jones, April's parents, sat in silence as the verdicts were given. They listened to the judge talk about the torment they've had to live with, and then, in a case which has left many lost for words, made this brief statement.
"We are relieved that Mark Bridger has today been found guilty of the murder of our beautiful daughter, April. April will be forever in our hearts, and we are so moved by the overwhelming support we have had from so many people from all over the world. We would like to thank our family and friends and the community of Machynlleth, who, without their support, we did not know how we would have to get through the last 7 months since April is so cruelly taken from us."
Police emergency.
My dog's been kidnapped. I live with a dog.
Are you able to stay still for me for a moment?
No, hang on. Val, can you speak to me? She's gone off in a car with somebody. Somebody's picked her up in a car or something.
OK, what's the name of the child that's gone missing?
April Jones.
It was a 999 call which would trigger the biggest search operation in British policing history.
Just to update you, we're going to get everybody out searching in the next few minutes.
Once I've been gone out with a team leader, I need every name down on that piece of paper.
This was a case which would see a town brought to a standstill, brought to tears.
This child has not been found. We still have hope. I've been saying this from the very beginning. We still have hope.
And in the silence try to channel its grief through the innocuous symbol of a little girl's favourite colour. 8 months on, the motif of a lost child remains painfully evident.
They never found her body. They searched the mountains, the disused quarries, the old mine shafts. They trawled the riverbeds. They even ventured out as far as the coast, week after week after week, but nothing. This was a killer, said the police, who was forensically aware.
This is Bridger, filmed on the morning after he'd murdered April Jones. Casually out walking his dog. Head freshly shaven, house bleached, wood burner still smouldering. Evidence destroyed, now about to concoct a story that he'd accidentally run over April and then, utterly drunk, suffered complete memory loss over what he did with her body.
My view is that Mark Bridger is an evil and manipulative individual. He's somebody who demonstrates a lot of control. He is a fantasist.
When he came to North Wales from London in his 20s, leaving behind him what would be one of many broken relationships and the first of 6 children, Bridger told people he'd been trained by the SAS in Burma, that he'd worked as a mercenary in Afghanistan and Cuba. This is his Facebook profile photo. In reality, he'd been a welder and a driver.
You have to make sure that you were in control, because he could manipulate you quite easily if he wanted to.
He once drove taxis for John Jones's firm in Aberystwyth. There'd been reports Bridger had been rallying around the town. John Jones secretly filmed and then confronted him.
And he said, "Oh, no, it's not me, definitely not." And I said, "Well, it must be you, Mark." He said, "No, it's not me." I said, "It is." "No," he said, "definitely not." Got a bit, you know, not aggressive, but he tried to put his weight over to say, "No, it isn't me," and leave it alone. I said, "Well, I'll explain this then," and then I showed him the video.
And his reaction?
Couldn't care. Didn't really care. Didn't really care at all. And I said, well, and that was the day as I said, his employment ceased.
April Jones say the police was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Born prematurely with a form of cerebral palsy which caused her pain in her legs, she rarely moaned about it, said her mother today. She was a little fighter, she said, who ruled their lives. After leaving the leisure centre that evening, the Year 1 primary schoolgirl went back home, had spaghetti on toast, watched her favourite Disney film, and then pestered her parents to go out and play. Reluctantly, they gave in. Bridger, seen earlier at the council offices, had been drinking all day. By now he was in his Land Rover, parked up on the estate, close to the home of a girlfriend who'd recently broken up with him. What happened next, as witnessed and relayed to the court by April's 7-year-old friend, completely contradicted Bridger's account of an accident.
She got into the car. The man didn't put her in the car, but she did. She wasn't crying. She was happy. She got in the back of the van and it just drove off.
Off out of Machynlleth in his Land Rover. Bridger would be seen arriving at his home more than an hour later, where the police believe April Jones died.
Based on the findings in the house, and particularly the remains that we believe we've recovered from the fire, that April may well have been dismembered in the house, and then parts of her remains may have been disposed of at various locations, and unfortunately we've not been able to recover any of her remains thus far.
If you don't think he put her body in the river, what do you think he did do with her body?
I think he will have wrapped her in some kind of material which will have frustrated our efforts to gain scent. The possibility that there is a shallow grave out there somewhere, or a pre-prepared grave out there somewhere, is always a possibility.
All they have been able to find are traces of April Jones's blood in Mark Bridger's living room and in his bathroom, as well as charred fragments of a child's skull in his fireplace.
As for why Mark Bridger did what he did, well, the police are in little doubt that his actions were sexually motivated. The contents of his computer recovered from his home here, testament to that.
The police would find image after image of the graphic sexual abuse and rape of children, and, compounding the distress of many in the town, Facebook photos of numerous local girls. One father whose young children regularly came into contact with Mark Bridger spoke to Channel 4 News about this. We're not identifying him.
I feel absolutely sick. When I found out it was him, things started plotting in my head. Has he touched them? Has he taken photos? My children have been interviewed by the police. From a parent's point of view, it's been really difficult. It's been the worst 6 to 8 months of our lives.
He had a string of convictions, including for theft, assault and possession of a firearm. But they've found no evidence, say the police, of Bridger ever having harmed children before. In Machynlleth a few weeks ago, someone had scrawled the words, "Hang him," on a placard next to the clock tower. It was swiftly removed.
April will never come back to this community again, but saying that, she will never leave this community. For as long as this generation lives in Machynlleth, and when they move away, this little girl will be with them wherever they go.
Mark Bridger was led out of court today, for the first time his face no longer shielded by a blanket. But still, cruelly, masking the truth about what he did with the body of April Jones, the young girl who one night last October so trustingly got into his car.